If you've ever wondered why your life sometimes feels like a casting call attracting people with unresolved trauma, here's the hard truth. You attract the energy that you put out. Yes, that anxious frequency that you carry, your team feels it. And it often causes trauma. It's that severe. Your clients are going to mirror it. They're going to reflect it. The clients that you attract. Your business becomes a tuning fork for whatever is rattling inside you. But here's the good news. Today, we're going to show you how to recognize the patterns, regulate the frequency, and stop letting your nervous system run the room. If you've ever taken on a terrible client because you were desperate or created chaos by solving a problem too fast, then this episode is your wake-up call. If you are an entrepreneur, you are an addict. Yes. Who would know better than two addicts ourselves? Joining us here as the host of The Entrepreneur Addict is Lance Pendleton. Lance Pendleton is an entrepreneur addict, and Lance, I'm told, he also looks like the kind of guy who wants to wear a kilt, but is afraid he'll get accused of cultural appropriation.
And my host with me is Matthew Tompkins, an entrepreneur and addict, and the guy that actually looks like he practices bird calls as a way to pick up women.
It's not to pick up women, but I practice. Bet your ass I practice. All right. On that note, today we're talking about trauma, and the trauma you are, the trauma you attract is the title of this episode. I noticed this as a theme. My therapist, and I've given her so much money.
Yeah,
sad.
I was going to say,
but the first breakthrough I had was I said, man, why did I attract this woman who is such a broken, horrible, mean person? And just so broken and lost. And she's like, why do you think? I was like, oh, because I'm broken. Mm-hmm. I'm horrible. Like all of that, we attract each other. Yeah. And later on, I would think to myself, as I often do, am I attracting all of these individuals with unresolved trauma? People who have these issues with trauma in their past because it stemmed from dating, romantic life, to friendships, to professional, to clients. And I'm like, there's a theme here. What is going on? What did I do wrong? And how do I right this ship? That's really what I want to find out. Okay.
So I like to start off with actual client stories to give some context to it. But for this episode, guess who the client's going to be?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
We're going to use you as the example. Because I think, again, look, we all have, this is the reality of who we are and what we do. You have an amazing business. You have a fantastic company. Since I've been here as a partner with you and working through different things, one of the most concurrent themes that I see across the board is that there is a tuning fork, right? And that tuning fork, that energy, that vibration that comes out from Matt hits everything around it, right? Yeah. And so there's elements to your business that are amazing because you have that high vibrational frequency that you're just in it, on it, moving through. And at the same time, there is a high vibration frequency of undercurrent or overcurrent anxiety that's driven a lot of the different elements of the business. And I'll give you an example. Your experience, right, from childhood all the way through up into where you're at currently, we all carry these things with us. And there's an element to that where we have sort of this built-in kind of self-defense mechanism where we're just working because we need to make this work, right? That anxiety gets pushed out to others. So what I've noticed is for a lot of my clients, not just yourself, you going into a situation, if you come into that situation anxious, on that high vibration frequency, the people in the room, guess what?
Yeah.
They're anxious, high vibration frequency. They're the ones that are now struggling. And I see it all the time. And then your clients that you start bringing in are also anxious.
Yeah. And you can say it. You're singling me out. I get it.
I'm singling you out because, again, I think it's an amazing example of success with, again, some fine tuning that needs to hit anybody.
Let me tell you about a phrase from this online dating course.
God almighty.
This online dating course, very valid point. Now, these guys are...
Wait. What? You took an online dating
Yes,
course?
I did. I have to be honest with you, like, being a single, I think, man or woman, it doesn't matter your gender, over the age of 40, it is a learning curve. Because, I mean, you got to think, like, back, the last time I dated anybody, texting wasn't even a thing. It was like you had to hit the number 3 times to cycle through.
Yeah.
So now it's a whole new ballgame. So I send messages that are thinking, oh, well, they want me to respond. So I'll send an essay long message, or I'm doing voice to text and it's even longer. It's like a lot of old people things that I tend to do, but it's because you're out of the loop. So I took an online dating course. I'll say these 2 guys that put it together were like grossly unattractive. And I mean that inside and out. They were just horrible people. I mean, they were misogynistic, like women belong in the kitchen. Just, oh God. Not anybody I would ever want to give my money to, except for one thing. What they were talking about psychologically was sound. It was sound, and it built into like how we're wired genetically and the things that we seek. My favorite line from it is this: the less you give, the more you get. Now that's very crude.
Yes.
I agree.
Yes.
But we've all had that experience where we're in the zone, right? And it's like everything's going our way. We're getting new clients. They're just coming in. I'm not even trying. What the hell?
Yeah.
And then we have energy romantically where it's like, oh my God, I don't even know. When we came up, gave me her number. I didn't even hit on her. It's like when we're not trying, we're sending out this high vibrational frequency, this energy. And this isn't a foo-foo thing. They've literally measured it. That's what quantum physics is measuring energy and output. So I think there is truth to that energy output. The trick, I think, is I feel like we don't have control over it as entrepreneurs. And you're right. We need a regulation system for this energy that comes out of us, because if we can't control it, we're going to turn into the Incredible Hulk and we're going to destroy everything. We have...
Totally. I want to bring it back one step though, because let's call it for what it is.
Yeah.
Anybody that owns their own business, whose livelihood, their well-being, their family's well-being is dependent upon the next sale, the next client, the next good investment, the next whatever that thing is automatically going to have a certain level of anxiety that they're actually dealing with, right? And when we talk about addiction, when we talk about the things that entrepreneurs suffer from, whether it be depression, anxiety, addiction, all the different things that can come along with being an entrepreneur, every entrepreneur that I've had the pleasure working with at some point has expressed tremendous anxiety, whether it be economic anxiety, whether it be anxiety about next steps in the business, whatever that thing is. But I never see them actually not take a step back to not then project that directly onto everybody else, right? Because when you're anxious that, guess what, we're not making as much as we did this time last year, I don't see people then focus on how do I then calm others who might be worried about that, rather than project that anxiety on everybody else and go, well, we need to work harder. We need to do more. Let's get 10 more clients. If it were that easy, right, then we would have done it already, right? So it's I just think that there's such an important piece to understanding what am I bringing into this and what is that anxiety doing to other people around me. And where I see it the most is if you're in an anxious state, you will make anxious decisions. Those anxious decisions often mean doing business with clients who suck. They're clients. But you took them even though you wouldn't normally work with them. Why? Because you saw this is going to fix and solve a problem. And when you think this is going to fix and solve a problem that I'm anxious about, it's a short-term solution to a long-term problem. They're going to end up creating more anxiety in the long run.
Yeah, and I think when you look at the zone and having the right energy that's coming out of you, you're right. There's we've all had that experience where someone comes across too desperate. And I think that's part of what this dating thing was too, is you don't want to come across needy, clingy, or desperate. And this translates, I think, directly to what we do in business with sales and with motivating our team. We can't go into a meeting and be like, all right, guys, this is the best thing ever, guys. It's just great. We really need we're going to close 10 more, right, this week. Yeah, I mean, it's whoa, buddy, what's going on? As opposed to walking in and just being calm, being I think, rational of mind. So how, I guess, the problem is clear. I think twofold here. My questions would be, as an entrepreneur, then how do you become aware and recognize when you're in that moment? Because sometimes it is hard for us in that visionary seat. We're this unique ADHD whole ball of crazy up here. We don't even see that we're coming across anxious. I'm horrible at having my physical body language actually reflect how I'm feeling or what I'm saying. And so that can make people anxious. And I know that's happened here. So how do you become aware of it? And then what are the tools to put that high vibrational energy out instead of this toxic, anxious energy?
First thing is ask the people around you. Do I make you anxious when I'm anxious? They'll tell you straight up. If you went to 3 or 4 of your employees that you work around and ask them, by the way, when I come in, if I bring energy into something, does it make you anxious? It's the first question. If they look at you and they're honest, there's a good chance they're going to look at you and they're going to say, yeah. Then the second question is, cool, when do you see that the most? Well, the weekly meetings that we have about X is where or you know what, end of month. I don't know why it happens end of month. Well, it's financially related, but whatever that might be, but ask them when they see it, because that's the awareness piece so that you can understand it. Awareness is the first step to fixing anything. Secondly, when you think about how do I begin to fix this, every business, every relationship, anything that has a group dynamic, if you have that in you, you need to have what I call a stabilizer. Everybody needs a stabilizer in their life. For many people, it can be their relationship, it can be their marriage, their partner, whatever that is, that other person doesn't have that energy and they create stabilization in that. Sometimes it doesn't exist in a business, so you need to find who or what can be that stabilizer for me in my business. If you're a smaller business, if you are don't have a lot of the resources, there are actually platforms and programs out there that you can use. You can do fractional work folk that'll help create stabilization. COOs are great at this. But honestly, there's usually somebody within your business that if you look at it, you'll go, you know what? They're like pretty chill. They're pretty on the beam on things. Use them and empower them to help create stabilization when you start feeling that freneticness to help shift things back. It's the old feelings aren't facts. A lot of this comes from a lot of big feelings. If you have a factually based type A person, they're very good at creating some stabilization.
So you use me as the client here as the example. So let's go further into that. So I know you've been working with us here at my company, Two Brothers Creative. You and I have a whole project with the Entrepreneur Addict app and everything that we're doing, online course. That's been exciting. But part of that has been, stepping in and helping with the operations and kind of overhauling things that just not my area of expertise. And so it's been phenomenal, and we greatly appreciate it. You've been talking with our team, Delaney, who's our director of operations, newly promoted to that role. I know she can have, some people can be more anxious than others too. And it's out of, I think, concern and care, but I know for a fact I make her anxious. So what has been the responses you've talked to other people on the team about me making them anxious, and then what has worked? Because I've listened to what you said and said, okay, you want me to stay away, I'll stay away, or whatever you want me to do.
So again, there's a lot of trust involved in this process, and so I think you and I are in a unique relationship and situation because you've trusted me to do something that I think a lot of owners wouldn't do. So remember, you're a little more evolved than the average bear because you sort of asked for help, which most people don't want to ask for help. So that's sort of the very first thing. But when I talk to your team, and this is, again, not just you, this is so many different people that I work with across the board. When I talk to teams, they're not even aware that the owner or operator is making them anxious. It's become the norm. It's what's customary to them. And because they're not even aware, they don't know what sort of normal should look like. And so the very first thing is, you have to sort of help somebody reset the expectation of what does normal look like. And I'll give you a prime example. When I started working here, you've said things to them a dozen times. Things don't get through. I say the exact same thing that you just said, and they're like, oh, that's great. And it has nothing to do with anything other than the way that I've said it, and the energy that's coming with it just feels different, so they hear it differently.
Well, and I think part of it too is when your voice or when your delivery or anything, it's like when it has just come with a history of this is going to be anxious, so this is going to be bad, this is going to be bad. They have already created the narrative in their head that whatever they're going to say is going to be bad. It's going to be dumb, and I'm not going to like it. So it even matters, I think, you have to almost break the cycle of like, okay, hearing this from me, and you and I have been doing this, where it's like, okay, I'm communicating things to you, and I could sometimes do just very lengthy data dumps of, hey, don't forget this, we got this. And it was tough at first to like just let go of that and like, okay, step back. Now it's not, and it's been like, I don't know if I have any advice for the entrepreneur addict who, like you said, most that struggle, that aren't able to ask for help, other than just to encourage you that you can't get help until you ask for it. And it's stupid. I've heard this myself and I didn't believe it when I was told this, but your business will operate and function better. You will be happier, healthier. Everything across the world will improve when you are not in the way, when you get out of the way. You are the problem.
Well, yes, and again, let's talk about the takeaway from today's podcast, because what I would want listeners to begin to really do is not view themselves as the problem. I think it's a mistake that I think a lot of people hearing this will make, is they're like, oh, I'm the problem. You're not the problem. You are, again, the business has been to this point successful because of the talent that you have brought. It is becoming aware of what are the things that create anxiety in me. How do I write those things down so that I understand when I look at all the different things, what are the areas that I get most anxious? What are the things that I feel really crappy around? And then understanding, how do I empower somebody else to take those on so I don't have to do those, so I can focus on the things that I'm really good at, right? Yep. So in this case, we talked about it, operational stuff. You're like, ew, I hate that.
Administrative meetings. Yeah. I literally almost had a breakdown the other day. I hired 2 movers to come and just move some heavy furniture down up into the stairs and out to my garage. And like, they were an hour and 15 minutes late, which already ticked me off. So I was already in a bad mood. And then they show up and then they're just taking for freaking ever. And then they have to take the door down. And that's like, oh my God, it got to a point where like I had paid him for a full 2 hours and then some. Like I paid him like, it was like $200 for a couple hours. I paid him $400 as the deposit. And I said, I don't even care if you keep the deposit, just get out. Yeah. Like, just get out. Like, that gave me so much anxiety just sitting there. Like, I don't want these people in my house. And they're just doing, it's weird how that is a feeling that doesn't make any sense. Yeah. However, what I have learned through this process, a big takeaway for me is, it doesn't have to make sense. You just have to recognize it and you have to acknowledge the feeling, and you can't just ignore it and say, okay, I know this gives me anxiety. Proposals, it was an early red flag for ADHD for me was like, I could not put together a simple proposal or a quote. It was like the bane of my existence. And I would tell people on our team about it and they would like literally like, what the hell's wrong with you? Like other people with ADD would say, dude, what the hell? Like it's a freaking proposal. And like, it just, my executive function, I couldn't do it. Yeah. And finally I just got to the point I was like, you know what, I can't do it. Yeah. So I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to try and understand why, and I'm not going to make the argument. I'm just going to delegate it to you, because like, fortunately I own the company, so I can do that, you know? But I think there is that point where you just got to accept and recognize, okay, yeah, there's some things I need to track and be aware of. And then I need to do some things with your team and actually listen to your team for that feedback.
And that tuning fork thing that we talked about in the beginning is incredibly important, because again, you're operating at a high frequency state. Yeah. And when you're already operating in a high frequency state and then someone puts something in front of you that you're like, ew, I hate doing these. Guess what happens to that frequency? It doesn't slow down. It speeds up even more, which makes you, and it becomes something that, again, affects your nervous system, affects your sleep. It creates dysregulation in every aspect of it. Now, I just want to give a tangible like example of this. So when I first came into helping from the operations standpoint of the business, there was like 8 different meetings going on with the team every week. And I'm looking at this, and I sat in on one of the meetings. There's like 5 people on the meeting, and everyone was anxious. They're talking about a client thing that we're doing, and everyone was in this like freneticness of, do we have this and should we do that and what are we doing with this, and it was blah, 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 and all this other stuff. And at the end of the meeting, I had said to Delaney, I'm like, why do we have this meeting? And she was like, well, because we need to talk about the client stuff. And I said, but you didn't actually talk about anything to resolve anything. Everybody just was anxious about what they were doing. They know what they're doing. Why are we having a meeting and spending money, right, to talk about this level of anxiety? Oh, well, and it was like this blankness. I was like, great, cancel all of these now. Like, get these things out of the way, because unless it's necessary, it was feeding on itself. And that's just, I see it so often in a lot of different things that people kind of try to get going.
And that, if you do the hard math on it, we're paying for that anxiety. That meeting alone there is probably $250 to $300 bucks. Like, we're paying. Our leadership team meeting used to drive me, I'd be like, it's like $750 and you add up all the, and I'm like, and what did we get out of it? What did we accomplish? And so, yeah, I agree. I think having an outside perspective, I think, is critical with this, because it really is hard to see in the moment that you're being, what your energy is, but it's not foo-foo nonsense. Like there's an old movie, it's called What the Bleep Do We Know? Yeah. And they did this, like, talk about this test they did where they took 3 glasses of water in a control, and then they had 1 glass, and they wrote on a piece of paper, hate, the word hate, taped it facing in, and then they wrote love, taped it facing in. And they came back and they studied it on a molecular level. The one with love, the molecules had changed. They were like these beautiful snowflakes. And the one with hate looked like mud, like sewer water. And so there is scientific proof that the energy we put out, the words that we use, it does manifest in something. And so you can have an input on that, but I think you have to believe it's this hive mind. Like, we have to believe that like the whole organization is one unit, and you're like the brain at the top. So,
I want to give that takeaway if you can for this, because I think it's incredibly important. The healthiest thing someone can do is do a 20-minute contemplation, right? And we'll put this in the show notes so that you have a little working structure to think about it from. But that 20-minute contemplation, to understand, one, what is my nervous system reactive to? And just write down, what does my nervous system get fired up on, is probably just the very most important, biggest thing that you can do, because most people aren't even aware of it. You don't think about it. That needs to become the starting point, and then you need to be able to move forward to actually delegate some of those things to other people.
Because we do this a lot of times because of the trauma we went through. Of
course.
As the founder, CEO, C-suite leader, what we don't realize is how much trauma are we inflicting on other people in our workspace. Because trauma, it's like CTE. It's the little dings that get you. It's not the big, one-time concussion. It's the little dings repeatedly over time. That's the trauma that has an impact that's really hard to separate from people's identity. So I think it starts with you recognizing your own and then not contributing to others. Or as Dean Martin would put it, it's the trauma llama, mama, trauma llama.
I was going to buy you lunch today. I'm not going to buy you lunch anymore.
Oh. So right now in the show notes, you can download this for free, a little guide for you to do a contemplation, right?
Yeah,
20-minute
contemplation to understand what are the things that create anxiety in me? What are the things that sort of drive that nervous system? And then once you've written those down, take a look to see what things someone else can complement with you and be able to help be supportive in that process. And then what are the things specifically that you're like, nope, this gives me anxiety, but I gotta do this. Because once you begin to separate those two things out, you'll have a better understanding of the things that you have to do will feel less overwhelming because you're not combining them with things you don't have to do.
There was a similar chart in that book I loved, Buy Back Your Time. And it was where it was this like time matrix thing. We can put that in there where you have like 4, sections, and it's like, okay, this makes the most money and I enjoy it, and you figure out, okay, where should I be dedicating my time? And there's in that first section is where you spend most of our tasks. They're all at the delegation square. We can delegate most of that stuff out. So maybe I'll put a little something in the show notes too this time.
That'd be great.
All right. We'll see who gets the most downloads.
It'll be mine, but that's okay. I like your thinking there.
I like how you're contemplating that's the case. If this episode hit you square in the nervous system, don't just nod and move on. Inside the Entrepreneur Addict app, we walk you through the same awareness and delegation steps that we covered in today's episode. So you're not running your business from a place of anxiety. Download the app for free and get started building a calmer, more stable version of your business today, or simply click on the link in the description.